see people, and we're certainly excited to bring you together for this next installation of our education series, talking about the recommendations that are in the Transportation 2030 report that's at each of your seats. My name is Tim Giuliani. I have the honor of serving as President and CEO of the Orlando Economic Partnership, and on behalf of our Board of Directors, we're just glad to see all of you here to talk about this really important priority, not only for our organization, but for all of us in so many different ways, and for the future of our community. Now, finally, I want to welcome up to the stage and thank for sponsoring WSP, who has really made this educational series, our convening and being here today, possible. So please help me to welcome Alice Bravo, WSP's Florida District Leader, to share a few remarks.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Alice Bravo, the Florida District Leader for WSP, and WSP is proud and honored to be the sponsor of today's Invest Boldly event. We're excited about the direction that Orange County is moving in with Mayor Demings' leadership, and we're looking forward to the bright future for the region, which is literally the heart of Florida. We would like to thank the Orlando Economic Partnership for their work in the region. WSP is proud to have been a supporter of the partnership for many years. We are also appreciative of the great work that the Alliance for Regional Transportation is doing to drive and support a broad transportation system for Central Florida residents, businesses, and visitors, while encouraging continued economic development and improved quality of life for everyone here. Now, a little bit about WSP. WSP is one of the world's leading engineering and professional services firms, established in 1885. We have over 13,000 engineers, geologists, planners, technical experts, strategic advisors, and construction management professionals in the U.S. in over 100 cities. Across the globe, WSP has over 50,000 professionals with expertise in numerous technical areas and every type of engineering. Engineering News Record's annual rankings are out, and we are proud to have been ranked #1 on the list of top 225 international design firms for the second year in a row. We have achieved the top 5 positions across the board with #1 spots in buildings and transportation. And most importantly, our projects and people are consistently recognized as industry leaders. In Florida, we have 7 offices and over 700 employees specializing in transportation, water, environmental services, resiliency, and many other areas. So we are grateful to have been part of the Central Florida community with our WSP office in Orlando since 1985. We're particularly proud of those projects we've been involved with in Orange County, such as Sunrail, Lynx Limo Lines. We've worked with the Orange County's Water Conservation Program and CFX, FDOT District 5, Florida Turnpike, and Orlando International Airport. To help our infrastructure clients prepare for the future, WSP has created a global innovation program called Future Ready. Through Future Ready, WSP brings clarity and vision to complex challenges. We see the future more clearly through key trends in climate change, society, technology, and resources, and challenge staff to work with our clients to advise on solutions that are both ready for today and for the future. Future Ready delivers peace of mind, lower life cycle costs, and resilience. So given our experience, we understand the importance of having a versatile and multimodal transportation network for this community and this region. Providing residents, businesses, and visitors with reliable transportation options allows for sustainable growth, livability, and access to opportunity for all. WSP is ready to help the Orlando region invest boldly and succeed in this endeavor to provide a coordinated transportation network for Central Florida that is future ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice, and WSP for making today's program possible. My name is Rachel Cobb, and I am the Senior Director of Public Affairs here at the Partnership. As many of you directly involved in transportation are aware, tomorrow a very critical piece of legislation known as the Fixing America's Surface Transportation Act, or FAST Act, expires. To ensure transportation projects are not temporarily halted, a replacement must be adopted. We are in luck, hopefully. It is expected that Congress vote on the $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure package that would replace the FAST Act, known as the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, or IIJA, by tomorrow, September 30th. This bill includes $550 billion of new federal spending over a 5-year period. This legislation would be historic and create ample opportunity for transportation projects across the United States. The IIJA is estimated to bring more than $16.3 billion in transportation funds to Florida over the next 5 years. It is also the top priority of President Joe Biden through his Build Back Better agenda. But, as many of you are aware, the tension in Congress currently stands high due to debate over timing, procedure, and a full and ambitious agenda. The IIJA passed the Senate in August and will now face a vote this week in the House before it can be sent to the President for his long-awaited signature into law. In the House, Democrats and progressive Democrats currently battle over the IIJA and whether it should be enacted before or after the $3.5 trillion budget reconciliation bill. This bill currently includes many social programs that were originally included in the President's Build Back Better agenda and the original House infrastructure package that are not included in the IIJA. Meanwhile, Republicans and moderate Democrats grapple with that top-line figure of this spending and tax package. This is all occurring as Congress runs up against tight deadlines and intense debate for funding the federal government and managing the national debt. Here at the Partnership, we are primarily focused on supporting the IIJA as it is a once-in-a-generation opportunity that would help us reach beyond what state and local governments can do. It would create millions of jobs, improve global competitiveness, and add trillions of dollars in economic growth through investments in roads, bridges, ports, airports, transit, rail, water, energy, broadband, and more. We need to be prepared with creative ways to pursue targeted funding on all levels of government when the IIJA is passed. This will help us complete I-4 construction and support major transit capacity investments. And although there is currently strong debate over these important policy proposals, we are grateful for the Central Florida Congressional Delegation and really the I-4 Congressional Delegation, who early on during infrastructure package negotiations sent a letter to President Biden and Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg in support of I-4 Beyond the Ultimate, which would significantly benefit from federal investment and encourage them to visit the Orlando region. Before we hear from our keynote speaker, Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings, I'd like to welcome back to the stage our President, Tim Giuliani, to speak more to the importance of investment in the transportation region.
Great job, Rachel. Thanks for the update. We all know, so much goes on in Washington, and certainly we need to be part of that conversation. But let's zoom in a little bit here in Orlando. We all know through the pandemic, some things have drastically changed, some things haven't changed at all. It's a smattering. One thing that has certainly remained is the growth of our region, which was the impetus for our focus on transportation and the writing of this report and the deciding on priorities. To help tell this story, maybe to save you a few minutes of reading, we put together this video to really explain the opportunities and the challenges that lie ahead.
The time to act is now. Orlando is at a crossroads. Decades of uninterrupted growth have eroded our transportation system. In fact, our road system is so overused that we lead the nation in pedestrian deaths. If we don't fix it, it will hinder our business infrastructure limit accessibility for everyone, and put the brakes on our vision of broad-based prosperity. With a population forecast to pass the DC Metro by 2045, the time to act is now. We need a bold plan to secure our transit future, or we will become victims of our own success. Our city is divided by poor east-west connectivity. Improving it will better connect our residents to good jobs in healthcare, education, and tourism. Our public transit system lacks frequency, range, and speed, making it unusable for most of the population. We have to modernize it. Transit riders have access to less than 6,000 jobs, compared to more than 500,000 for car users. That is indefensible. By the time I-4 Ultimate is finished, it will already be inadequate. We need to extend and build I-4 beyond to handle the cars we expect on the roads and increase connectivity for commerce. As the simulation capital of the world, we should lead the way in transportation innovation with breakthrough seamless multimodal transportation solutions that usher in a new era in smart commuting. While we have one of the busiest airports in the world, our connectivity to that hub and other global hubs is weak. We need to strengthen our global gateways, from air to sea, rail to space. The time to act is now. It is time to empower a regional transportation authority to oversee and coordinate all of our transit systems. It is time to adequately fund our public transportation system. It is time for business leaders to lead by investing in transit that supports our employees, or we'll find ourselves with a talent deficit as the best leave to find a better quality of life in a forward-thinking city. Imagine Orlando with a robust highway system, an extended train schedule, and adequate bus routes to accommodate all. Roadways that are safe and shareable for cars, bikes, and pedestrians. High-speed rail to Florida's major cities, and easy access to the airport from our downtown core, with extended job access and unlimited potential. Together, let's invest boldly in a sustained transportation vision for Central Florida. One that supports all of our residents with opportunities and encourages continued growth. Let's make 2020 the year we change the future of transportation in Orlando.
There's an organization that's used to putting together highlight reels. This one strikes a different tune, and I know some of you don't like it. It's meant to make you uncomfortable, and it's meant to make us realize that we have to lead these decisions now, because anything in this field takes years to implement and design and to build and then to maintain. And so these decisions that we're making now are really about the Orlando that will be in 2030. And so it's meant to jolt you, and it's meant to talk about some challenges, but the report is ultimately about what are the solutions and what could we work on together. So in the report, we point out the priorities of building out and speeding up our regional transit systems, transforming all of I-4, improving east-west connectivity, strengthening our global gateways, leading transportation innovation and technology, empowering a regional transportation authority, and investing boldly in a shared vision, which is what we're here to talk about today. So there's certainly elements of this plan that are well underway, but none of them will reach their full potential without the topic that we'll discuss this morning. And it's about investment and investing boldly as this region has never done before, even on the heels of the $10 billion investment in our infrastructure network. And we know that it's going to take a mix. It's going to take local funding. It's going to take state funding. Federal funding is also going to take public-private partnerships to get the job done. When you look at our prosperity scorecard, one fact that as this report and the folks that were involved in its development were putting together, one stat stood out. If you rely on transit to get to work, and we'll use a 30-minute commute as a standard, you have access to 5,500 jobs. That is 1% of the opportunities than if you had a car. So this is as much about congestion and advancing our community as it is providing access to people that haven't been built into the network so far. So we've been working on a refresh of How Shall We Go with regional partners. From there, MetroPlan Orlando has an important role to play with the long-range planning, and that process is done in partnership with other agencies. In addition, this is going to take coordination and a room like this of bringing together not only economic development, but workforce development, land use issues, housing issues, environmental stewardship, and also our public safety response teams. It's going to take close coordination with a lot of planning organizations, with counties, different levels of government, transit providers, and those not only within the heart of our region, but those connected on the I-4 corridor. We're going to have to go to Washington and be aggressive about pursuing federal funding, working in Tallahassee with partners to see this vision come to life. I-4 Beyond the Ultimate comes to mind. Sunrail to the airport comes to mind, as well as east-west multimodal corridors. And then, of course, it's not just the building of the system, it's the operations and maintenance and building a sustainable network for the future. So to tie this all together, to cast a vision, and to help us understand how we accomplish this goal of investing boldly, it is my honor to introduce Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings.
All right, good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be here. I hope you are as well. I can tell you that for the last nearly 3 years now that I've been the Orange County Mayor, it has been one of the most fulfilling experiences of my lifetime to serve as the mayor in the county where I was born and raised, and have spent the last 40 years in public service. Of course, all of you have been on that journey with me for an extended period of time, as I have held various titles during that period of time. But in my household, my favorite title is Papa. And working in this space to try to ensure that we create the kind of community that my grandchildren and their children will want to live in is nothing short of just having a phenomenal opportunity. So today, I'm going to talk with you a bit about some of the things that we're doing here in Orange County to make this community that experimental prototype community of tomorrow that I often talk about, the vision of Walt Disney. And as we are now on the precipice of celebrating the 50-year anniversary of Disney, a lot has happened in this community since they came to town. And so since I lived here pre-Disney and have lived through the entire ride, I can truly see the impact on our community. And overall, I think it has gone exceptionally well. So with that, it's just fantastic that our county is growing. That means that people see this as a place that they want to invest in, they want to live in. And in the last decade, our population has grown now to 1,430,000+ people who live here. It has grown by about 24%. I'm going to come back and talk more about that growth in just a few moments. We're one of the largest counties in the nation at 1,000 square miles, 13 municipalities. Essentially, 11 of those municipalities function like traditional cities. We have Bay Lake and Lake Buena Vista. That's a little different. But we have approximately 87% of our residents live and work in Orange County. But about 50% of the people who work in Orange County come from the surrounding counties, and that creates all kinds of transportation challenges for us as well. The median home sales price now is $320,000. And if you think about that, for many of the people who live in our community, that just is not attainable for many of them. So we have to do something to further diversify our economy and get wages up. If there's anything positive about this pandemic that we have been living through, it is the fact that it has driven the living wage up in our community now. Orange County endeavored to, within a 3-year period of time, get all of our full-time employees up to at least $15 an hour. We have accomplished that. So we have said to our private sector employers that that is something that they should strive for. And even within the hospitality industry, I don't have to tell those of you who work in that space, you've had to adjust your living wages or your beginning wages so that you can get employees. And so we still know that housing remains a significant challenge for all of us, with 110,000 households within Orange County who spend more than 30% of their total household income for rent payments, and that is extraordinary. And so we know that we've got to do a better job of building communities that really work for everyone. So my style of leadership here for the duration of my time as county mayor is to work in this space where we have the intersection of innovation, collaboration, and inclusion coming together, where we have to look boldly and invest in new technologies in our community in order to build this community that truly works for everyone in this community. And so that's the joy that I have to work with our Board of County Commission and our staff within Orange County to ensure that we are building that kind of place on planet Earth where no one gets left behind, that everyone in this community has an opportunity to live in a safe, clean environment with the best education systems anywhere. And so, with a growing community, I want to share some numbers with you. If you focus on that red on that map, that's today. Those are the red denotes areas where roads have already failed. And so in looking at the impact fee technical study that was recently done, there were some interesting numbers that came out of that. In the last decade, the system vehicle miles traveled increased by 29.2%, related to that tremendous growth that we have. The system lane miles, however, only increased by 8.88%. In the last decade, our population grew by 24%. In the next decade, it's expected to grow by another 25%. So all of that creates a lot of pressure on us here within our community with the 1.4 million people who live here. But pre-pandemic, nearly 76 million people came here to visit with us. And so all of that creates some challenges for us. Again, I think it is with this meeting today, as we're talking about investing boldly in transportation solutions, you get it. You understand that if we do nothing, we're going to have some challenges. If we do nothing, look at this map that is 2040. You can see a lot more red on that map. That means that there's a lot more roads that will be failing and congested. So this map is a graphic that suggests to me that we have to take innovative action, and we have to take it now. In fact, we're probably a little bit behind the curve on this. In terms of volume to capacity, within the last decade, with our roadways, we have seen a 25.1% increase. With roads over capacity, in the last decade, that increased by 17.63%. So we know that this is a worsening problem for us if we do not tackle this in some innovative ways. And this is 5 traditional ways that we could pay for this. First, the gas tax. When each of us fill up at the gas pumps, we pay a tax, a local option tax. We are not yet at the maximum tax that we could charge here in Orange County. We can increase it, and if we went right up to the max, it would bring in an additional approximately $27 million in revenue on an annual basis. If we look at impact fees, Orange County last month voted to increase impact fees, and impact fees bring in about $71.8 million on an annual basis. And then we have restricted resources. Some people look to the tourist development tax and they say, why don't you use the TDT funds to pay for our failed roads and infrastructure improvements? There's one problem with that. They're restricted revenue sources, and we know that because that is tied to tourism, it is tied to debt service. You know, the convention center that we're in now, we have to maintain it. There's certain debt service associated with some of the other venues that we have, the Performing Arts Center, the expansion of Camping World Stadium, and some other things that means that those funds really, for the most part, are woefully inadequate to be able to do what needs to be done here. During this pandemic, the lowest month, when we go back to April of 2020, we brought in about $700,000 that month. That was a historical low for us since the inception of the tourist development tax. The high within the recent months was, for the most recent months that we have numbers for, what goes back to July, and we brought in $24.7 million that month. That's pretty good because of all the Julys since the inception of the TDT, that month brought in more than any other month. And we're still within the pandemic, any other July month, that is. And then there are property taxes. People say, why don't you take money from your existing ad valorem taxes to pay for the roads? Well, we do pay for some of our road improvements using the property taxes. But if we increase the property taxes, one meal brings in about $181 million on an annual basis. A half meal, therefore, is a little over $80 million. So if you're keeping track of the numbers, I'm going somewhere with these numbers. There is more demand for the property tax revenues that we have than we have money to pay for everything that needs to be done, especially during a time like this where the social challenges are significant and our social services need more dollars to do everything that needs to be done. But I believe the sales tax is probably one of the best options for us. You all know that pre-pandemic, it was my goal to put a sales tax, a transportation infrastructure sales tax as a charter county on the ballot where we were going to increase our sales tax in Orange County by 1 penny. Today we're at 6.5% tax on the goods that we sell here within our county. To put that number into perspective, the sales tax, a 1 penny increase in our sales tax is projected to produce about $600 million. So go back to those other categories that I talked about. We talked about 27 million, we talked about 71 million, we talked about restricted sources, we talked about the property tax, a full meal increase, and I don't know about you if there's any appetite for everybody to pay more in property taxes or not. Maybe there's some appetite, but I believe that even so, you know, a full meal is about $181 million. The sales tax, again, on an annual basis is nearly $600 million. If we want to do something transformative for our community to take care of the congestion and the growth pains that we will all endure in the next 10, 20 years, then we need something that is much broader. The neat thing about the sales tax, it was projected that more than 51% of those who would pay the sales tax would be the visitors who are coming here into the area. In other words, the full cost would not be on purely the backs of those who live here. Generally speaking, when you talk about property taxes, that puts the burden purely on the backs of those who live here and own property in the area, and we kind of let the tourists up in terms of contributing to the solutions that we need. So I suspended those efforts in 2020 because our economy was in the tank. We were in a recession. We didn't have tourists coming, so the notion that 51% of the people were going to pay for it and asking our voters to vote for it on the ballot in 2020, I did not think would be successful. So I'm telling all of you that it is my desire, my goal to bring that back. We would have to have the support of our Board of County Commission to put it on the ballot. We would need all of you to weigh in on it. Pre-pandemic, I spent time talking to various groups, some 200 plus presentations I had personally done throughout the county, talking to everyone that I could. We took our show on the road. We went into all geographical areas of the county. We had chosen to share a portion of the proceeds from this penny tax with the municipalities. So we had done presentations with the various city councils, town councils, et cetera. We had a plan of action of how we would spend those dollars. And if you think about $600 million on an annual basis over a 20 or 30-year period of time, I hope you can understand that we're talking about billions of dollars that could truly do something that would assist us in solving the challenges. Some people, one of the circles I'm going to say that's not on this graphic is there are states around the nation that, because of electrical vehicles now, we know that they don't go to the traditional gas pumps and gas up because that's one of the reasons why we see the less growth in terms of the gas tax. But there's 28 states in the U.S. who have passed a fee for electric vehicles to travel on their roads. 9 other states are considering this, including the state of Florida. But even if that materializes here in the state of Florida, it's not going to be enough money to do something transformative. I believe everybody in the room here today, you get it, you understand it, and we have to look for a multimodal solution in order to build the world-class community that we want to live in. So, in terms of transportation funding, you all know that you will hear from speakers I know today who will talk about the federal infrastructure bills and the investment that they're looking to do moving forward to invest in our communities. Those funds are going to be competitive, and I think the communities that are going to do the best are going to be the ones who have plans in place where there could be some leveraging of dollars and funding from the local level, the local and state level with the federal dollars. In most cases, these opportunities will require local match, and they will come with specific requirements. And so I'm excited about some of what I hear in this community with a bright line, a private investor, for example, looking to do an intercity connectivity. You know that they're coming from Miami into the Orlando International Airport, and then will connect, west either through the 417, that's the preferred route. Some wanted to connect via 528 to the convention center area. A lot of those conversations are continuing, so we're not sure where that will likely end up. But in either case, the key there is that's part of a multimodal solution. I am committed to, at an appropriate time, if we are successful in advancing the sales tax initiative, we have an opportunity there as well to pay for connectivity from our airport to our tourist corridor here. So we don't have to put all of our eggs in one basket, I think, in order to make this happen in our community. But in order for this to sell for all of the people who live here, when we tell the story, everyone must see themselves in the narrative of that story of benefiting somehow. It cannot just be about connecting the people who are coming in, the tourists, to the convention center area if you're asking people in other areas of the county to help pay for it. No, what they want to do is see a well-connected community. So when we talk about these multimodal systems of transportation, you know, we have various options here. We have the options for commuter rail, light rail, monorail, bus rapid transit, other types of transit opportunities. But if we truly want to be that experimental prototype community of tomorrow, we need to do something innovative. We have to do something that is bold. We have to create that picture of something phenomenal happening, right? We have BEEP, autonomous vehicles. We can invest in autonomous vehicles. This is the future. But I think if we only had the conversation about taking an individual family out of one vehicle and putting them in one additional vehicle, we would not have done our job. We have to have a conversation about true mass transit. But these types of solutions for that first mile, that last mile, are great conversations to have. Our young adults who are living here, they're looking for innovation here within our community. If we're going to retain the talent in this community, these college graduates, they are looking for a well-connected transit system that really, again, allows them to get around. Many of them I hear, they say that I'm not interested in owning an automobile if I have a well-connected, convenient, cutting-edge type of experience, transit experience. Perhaps we can keep our talent here in the area, and I'll talk more about that in just a moment. So in terms of pedestrian safety, you know, I spent 38 years as a law enforcement officer working in public safety and responding to all types of traffic crashes, including automobiles, pedestrians, etc. And it kind of saddens me when we talk about our community, when we are noted by many around the country as having the worst community for pedestrian safety. Smart Growth America lists our region as the worst in the nation for pedestrian safety. 4 of the 5 most dangerous areas are in Central Florida. You know, we have a lot of positives, but that isn't one that isn't something that is positive for our community. So again, it begs the question, what are we going to do about it? And part of the transportation surtax initiative would pay for some innovations centered around pedestrian safety and the improvements associated with that to make certain that we're building communities that are bikeable, walkable, with all of the technology and the infrastructure around those areas to make it safe for our residents. If you look in for me, it's the bottom right. For you, it might be, I guess it's probably the bottom right for you. You see a couple of cars there in the picture. What that denotes is that we're doing some testing here in this community with a mobile app where an individual can download the app onto their cellular phone, and if they're a pedestrian, when they approach an intersection or what have you, it would alert them that there's oncoming traffic nearby, and their phone would vibrate or do some other things to alert them to be more aware as you are about to cross this intersection. Also, if it's on your phone, it could alert the motorist that there's a pedestrian here in the area. And so we have got to think creatively about what we're doing to improve pedestrian safety here within our area and get off of that dangerous by design or the worst list. And then I believe that we have to look for some solutions that are sustainable. When we live in a world now where I believe global warming is sadly the reality of the world that we're living in, we know we have to do a better job of creating communities where we are looking at alternative and renewable energy sources. Vehicle electrification is but one of those areas that we're looking to improve within our area. It is certainly environmentally friendly if we can get people out of combustible engine powered vehicles into electric vehicles. But as I said earlier, if we do nothing but get people out of singular vehicles into another vehicle and it's not designed to carry large numbers of people, it will be insufficient to adequately address the transportation challenges that we have. Okay, in terms of our roadways, there are 2,700 miles of county roadways, and it costs about $3 million per lane mile. And here in Orange County, 1 out of 4 of our roads are failing. Remember the map that I put up a few minutes ago that showed all of that red by 2040. Well, we're not going to sit idly by and do nothing. We're going to do something to ensure that that map doesn't become red. We certainly will work and endeavor to increase ride share and delivery service use and use more types of vehicle options. But I know that if we don't do something sooner than later, the problem is we cannot build enough roads fast enough to address the emerging transportation challenges that we have. We will continue to infringe on environmentally sensitive lands, and none of us, I think, want to do that long term, so we have to look at other solutions. And in terms of transportation and economic development, I don't believe we can solve the housing issues without solving the transportation challenges. We can't solve the transportation challenges without looking at the housing challenges. But in order to be a global or a world-class community, to compete for events like the World Cup Games in 2026, we have to have a community that has a robust transportation system in order to be that truly world-class community. Of course, we have to invest in our cultural arts and other amenities within this community, but transit is one of the biggest ones. I can tell you, I guess it was a couple of weekends ago, we had the FIFA group that was in town to do an evaluation of our community as we are competing with other metropolitan areas for some of the World Cup soccer games. You all know that we hosted, I think it was 5 matches in 1994, and that was the equivalent of getting like 5 Super Bowl games in 1 week in your community. You understand there's a tremendous economic benefit from doing that. But as we have grown, one of the things that they're looking at is not just the stadiums or the venues that the athletes would compete in, but the hotel and lodging amenities, but also transportation. They want to know that people can get around very efficiently. Okay, and so I ran through a lot of stuff, talked a lot this morning about some of the other things my presentation is a part of, I think, multiple presentations that should share additional information with you about what is going on here in the area. What I'll do, Tim, where's Tim? Tim, do I have time to open it up for any questions? Okay. All right, so I'll open it up for any questions that you may have. I understand that there's a microphone that will be moving around. Is that correct? Okay, yes. So look for that microphone as it's moving around, and so everybody can hear your question. I promise you that if I don't have the answer, one of my staff members here will.
Test one.
Thank you, Mayor, for that great presentation. I just have a quick question. You mentioned that you're not using the maximum tax on gas in order to raise revenue. What happens if you use the maximum amount? What would that put the gas price up per gallon?
Well, you know, the gas prices are tied to the markets, but what is it, you know, $3.30 average, I guess, with premium now. So it really depends on the time that we're talking about, what that additional total gas price would be. But Byron, you might be here somewhere. If we increase it, what would it be? Okay, 6 cents. Okay, an additional 6 cents, approximately $27 million.
Mayor, you've obviously given a lot of thought, and your staff and the people around you have, to what we have to do in the future. And this presentation, I think, is extremely well put together. It's obvious to me that the place we need to go is the sales tax. To get that passed, I'm looking ahead now and assuming that we get the National Infrastructure Bill passed. Will there be a tendency for people to say, that's going to be enough, we don't need to have the gas tax? That concerns me, that we've got to find a way around that argument.
Well, I think to do something truly transformative, you know, over a 20 or 30 year period of time, we still have to get the sales tax passed. So if we are successful in getting that on the ballot in 2022, and I believe we will be, that brings a lot of jobs along with it, right from the architects, engineers, and professional services right down to the people who will work in the construction jobs, the people who will work in landscape. I think there will be tremendous entrepreneurial opportunities for people here within our community. And so even with that, over time, you know, $600+ million on an annual basis, even that isn't enough to do everything that needs to be done. When we look at our public transit system, like the Links system here within Orlando and around the country, there is no public transit system that exists where ridership pays for the majority of the cost of operating those systems. All of them have dedicated funding sources. Unfortunately, we do not have a dedicated funding source. At some point here in the very near future, the commuter rail system, the Sunrail system, will be turned over to local operations from the state of Florida. And once that happens, the local partners are the ones who will be subsidizing the Sunrail. My vision for Sunrail as a commuter rail system is, you know, is to have spokes that go out into all geographical quadrants of the community, so that, again, it's a well-connected system. It's a convenient system. People won't use it if they can't, it's not close to where they live or close to where they work. And if it is not cutting edge, I believe if we can create an experience here with our system that perhaps doesn't exist in many other places, more people will want to ride it if it's that system. And then I sprinkle in that it needs to be in terms of how it runs or operates, it has to be frequent. People don't want to wait for hours in order to get to work. And if it's well connected, they won't spend hours commuting to work. You all saw some of the documentaries last year that talked about our workforce, in particular our service industry. Some of them spend hours, several hours one way getting to work using our public transit system now. And one lady talked about she spends about 3 hours one way, 3 hours the other way, 6 hours. And she was a single mother when they highlighted her. Just think about if we are able to cut that down, we can build housing closer to where they work, and we have a number of initiatives underway here within Orange County. We have the Housing Trust Fund that has been set up in which over a 10-year period of time we'll put over $100 million into that fund to build workforce housing. We have an initiative where we're working with Universal Orlando to build a 1,000 residential unit complex for workforce housing not far away from here, because those workers will be living closer to where they work and they don't have the huge cost of transportation infused in that. Hopefully we'll work with the developer where we want to see things like solar energy on some of these workforce housing units so that we can cut their energy costs. If we can cut their transportation costs, their energy costs, lift up their wages, then they have more discretionary income to take care of their families. And so I think that my vision for this is that we will need to tap into even the federal funds in order to expedite the development, the building of this multimodal system that will take time. I think, again, our goal is to try to leverage our dollars here and get more of our dollars back through the federal. You know, of course, all of you pay taxes and income taxes, and we want to get our fair share of those federal dollars coming back into this community. We lost some ground. You all know that historically we had a half-penny sales tax that we were advocating for, a couple of decades ago now, a decade and a half, and it failed because I think that people couldn't see them, everyone couldn't see themselves in the narrative of the story. So we're changing our approach. That's why we're spending so much time on the front end communicating to the community about the true benefits for everyone. So if we see the convergence of all of these dollars coming together at once, we can advance and the pace by which we can do something transformative. So that's what I see long term. So I don't think it's the argument is valid if they say, well, if you get federal infrastructure money, you don't need the sales tax money. I think we need all of it in order to have the true dollars that we need. And so with, as leaders in our community, and I view all of you as leaders in our community, whether you're elected or not, to work with us to position our community in the best light possible for all of our families to sustain the quality of life. We want high quality of life here in transportation, housing, arts and cultural affairs, economic development, a good education system. All of those things kind of come together in order to have the best community that we can possibly have. Okay. I don't know where the mic is. Okay, there.
Good morning, Mayor Deming. Thank you for this excellent discussion this morning and your vision. I am so impressed to hear your vision, but your understanding of the complexity of the need to understand the multimodal aspects of a transportation system and what it means to economic development. So thank you for that. I'm Janet Walker Ford. I'm with WSP, and I lead our national transit and rail business. And your discussion around transit and rail, and really what I heard was congestion management, is just outstanding. I guess getting to my question, I guess before I say that, APTA, the American Public Transportation Association, will be here in November for our national conference, and I know that you'll probably be part of that, members of your team. It'll be exciting to hear your vision as it relates to what the national trend is as well, whether it's funding and accessibility to healthcare and education. All the things that you're talking about are really vital issues and priorities, I think, that we see across the country. And your priorities and vision, I think, are right in line with, I think, the best thinking around here. So my question has to do with congestion management. You painted a picture, which I'll call mobility as a service, but it was really kind of your interpretation of how to look at, and I thought it was excellent, looking at all the modes of transportation, and you described an ecosystem where you really need to understand how they all benefit with congestion management or congestion resolution. And so I was wondering if you could talk a bit more about how you might create the type of collaboration and consensus against the various public and private sector folk that create the congestion on the railway. So that's whether it's freight or whether it's the Ubers and Lyfts, the individual drivers, that there are lots of folks that come through Orlando on the way to someplace else as well, and a lot of times we see that with freight. But part of it, and sometimes the biggest challenge, is being able to create a technology system as well as the consensus and collaboration to understand what creates that congestion, and let's resolve it using more than, like you said, just building more roadways. Thank you.
Yes, in order for us to have success, it is truly going to take public, private, and philanthropic investments in this endeavor. So when we see a private sector entity like Brightline, who is willing to invest in our community with inner city rail, that's substantial, because that's a multi-billion-dollar investment that they're willing to make. Why are they willing to make that? Because I believe that they believe that there will be a high return on their money, because they'll see the wave of the future, again, is to people value their time. They want to have a very predictable commute. And one thing about when you go to a commuter rail, that commute is predictable. If you were trying to make the same commute via an automobile, the time that it would take you is unpredictable. I live about 13 miles from my office. If I were able to travel on Interstate 4, for the duration, and Sand Lake Road, that commute should take me about 20 minutes. But some days that commute takes me 40 minutes. And when I leave my home in the morning, I have no idea how long that commute is going to take. But if we had a well-connected commuter rail system or options, that commute would be more predictable. And if there was a station close to where I live, I would take public transit in to get to work, because I know my commute is predictable. I can sit there, I can review some notes, I can multitask and do some other things while I'm doing that. So we have to create, I think, the vision for our community of what it is that we're trying to do. But it will take a lot of the right-of-way that, if it's bus rapid transit or some of the other things that we're doing, it's publicly owned lands. And so the public sector is certainly going to participate in this, but if we are building pedestrian walkways, bike paths, other things within our community, we will have the dollars to be able to do that, to get us off that dangerous by design list, is one of the worst in the nation. We want to change that. And then I think that when we talk about all people in this community, we're going to have to be innovative in how we provide the assistance to low-wage workers to pay for their commute. And I think this is where the philanthropic community that can come into play with the riders of links for the disabled and others who take Access Link so that they have good connectivity to be able to get around. So in other words, it takes a community. It will take the village in order for us to be successful. And there are different pots of money that comes along from the village. The village will pay for this. At the end of the day, we're talking about all of us paying, but also over half of the dollars will be paid by the visitors if we do the sales tax. All of those other options that I talked about put more of the burden on the backs of the people who live here. That's really the only one that substantially brings in new revenues from outside. And we're a tourist destination. Sometimes I think people like to criticize the fact that our tourism and hospitality industry is the largest sector, and they like to criticize that as low-wage jobs. But people like John McReynolds and some others, they make big salaries. John, you're in here somewhere. But you know, some of these people, you know, working in our hospitality industry, these GMs and other people who work at the hotels, there's a pathway to success. So what we're trying to do is work with the employers to create these pathways to being able to move up through training programs and other things, job skills development programs for their workforce, because there will always be, I think, others who will take the jobs. You know, I started working at Disney in 1974, and I worked out there for about 5 years, on and off while I was between high school and college. And that part-time work gave me enough income to help me buy my books when I went back to school at Florida State University. In some regards, it helped me pay my rent, because as a poor kid, I didn't have parents who could help pay that for me. I had to figure a way out for myself, and my twin brother and I, we spent time in college working in the hospitality industry. You know, I washed dishes, you know, at the Sweden House on International Drive at one point, trying to save enough money. So you're right, when we talk about the overall good of the people, it will take all of us to, you know, to look at it holistically. So transit is a big part of it. Housing is a big part of what we're trying to do here. So we have different task forces here within Orange County. We had an economic recovery task force that we put in place, you know, during the pandemic to get us back open. And I'm proud to say that this convention center was the first convention center in the nation to reopen after we got our global biorisk assessment certification to say that how we were doing business was great. Mark Tester's probably somewhere in the room. We were open and back for business in late May, June of last year. Chicago didn't have their first convention until this summer. They lagged a whole year behind us because of the forward thinking that we were doing here. So we ought to be proud of that as a community. So with that, I know that when Roseanne crosses her arms or, you know, recrosses her legs, she's saying, "You're out of time, Mayor." So let me just say thank you, Tim. Thank you to all of you for indulging me today to come up and share a few moments of your life with you. God bless you all. God bless this community. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Demings. Thank you, all of you. Thanks another time, WSP, for sponsoring today. Obviously, you know, we set the stage as to what's going on in Washington, what's contained in the report, what's the vision, and I think it's rather easy to see, yes, federal dollars are going to be helpful, state investment, public-private partnerships, private companies coming in. There's an all-of-the-above operation here, but if we're trying to figure out, as we did, what's the single biggest move we could make towards that vision for the future, it is what Mayor Demings outlined. So I look forward to all of us supporting him and the county commission over the next 18 months or so and seeing where we sit then and what the vision is and can we invest boldly as a community to really aspire and see that vision through. So thank you for joining us. We'll have many more conversations along these lines. Have a good day. Bye.